I want to tell you about a patient of mine. His name is Thomas. Thomas is 67 years old, and he came to see me about 10 months ago, referred by his urologist, who had been treating him for erectile dysfunction that had been worsening gradually over the past 4 years. Now, I want to talk about this openly because erectile dysfunction in men over 50 is one of the most important and most undertreated cardiovascular warning signs in all of medicine. And most men who experience it either do not mention it to their doctor or are handed a prescription without anyone taking the time to explain what that symptom is actually telling them about the health of their entire vascular system. Thomas sat down in my office and he was quiet at first, the way men often are when the reason they are there is something they find difficult to discuss. And I said, Thomas,
before we talk about anything else, I want to explain something to you that your urologist may not have had. Time to explain. Erectile dysfunction in a man your age is not simply a sexual health problem. It is a vascular problem. And the blood vessels that are involved in that specific function are a window into the health of blood vessels everywhere else in your body, including your heart, including your brain, including your legs. He looked at me and I could see something shift in his expression from embarrassment to attention, because what I was saying was different from what he had expected to hear. I told Thomas that I wanted to run a full cardiovascular assessment on him before we talked about treatment options for his urologist. And when we ran that assessment, what we found told a very specific story. His blood pressure was 138/86, elevated, but not dramatically so. His fasting blood glucose was 108, pre-diabetic range. His triglycerides were 196. His HDL was 36, low. His CRP, his inflammatory marker, was 2.8, moderately elevated. And when I ordered a flow-mediated dilation measurement, a specific test that measures the ability of the brachial artery, the main artery of the upper arm, to dilate in response to increased blood flow, a direct measure of endothelial function. His result was 4.2%. Normal is above 7%. Thomas's arteries were not dilating the way healthy arteries should. The inner lining of his blood vessels, his endothelium, was not producing adequate nitric oxide, the compound that signals blood vessel walls to relax, to dilate, to open wider, and allow blood to flow freely and fully through them. And the erectile dysfunction that had brought him to his urologist 4 years earlier was not a problem with one set of blood vessels in one part of his body. It was a symptom of a systemic vascular problem that was affecting every blood vessel in his body, including his coronary arteries, including the vessels supplying his brain, including the peripheral arteries of his legs. And I want to explain why nitric oxide is at the center of this story, and why what Thomas was drinking every day was either helping or hurting. The one molecule that everything I just described depended on. I am Dr. Daniel Chen, and today I want to explain what nitric oxide actually is, why it is the most important molecule in vascular health after 50, what happens to its production as men age, and the specific things you can add to your water and your diet that research has shown meaningfully support nitric oxide production and the vascular function that depends on it. So let me start with what nitric oxide is and why it matters so much. Nitric oxide is a gas produced by the cells that line the inner surface of every blood vessel in your body. These cells, called endothelial cells, form the endothelium, a single cell layer
that is in contact with the flowing blood on one side and with the arterial wall on the other. The endothelium is not passive. It is an active organ that continuously monitors the chemistry of the blood, the pressure within the vessel, the flow rate of blood, and produces signaling molecules in response that regulate the tone, the diameter, and the inflammatory state of the blood vessel wall. And nitric oxide is the most important of those signaling molecules. When the endothelium produces nitric oxide, it diffuses into the smooth muscle cells that surround the blood vessel, and it triggers those smooth muscle cells to relax. When smooth muscle cells relax, the blood vessel dilates, gets wider, and blood flows more freely, more fully, with less resistance through the vessel. This vasodilation is essential for blood pressure regulation, for oxygen delivery to tissues, for the responsive blood flow to the varying demands of different organs during different activities, and specifically for the adequate blood flow that every vascular function in the body depends on, including the ones that Thomas's urologist was treating. Now, here's what happens to nitric oxide production after 50, and why this matters so profoundly for men in this age group. The enzyme that produces nitric oxide in endothelial cells is called endothelial nitric oxide synthase, or ENOS. ENOS produces nitric oxide using an amino acid called L-arginine as its primary substrate, and requires several cofactors, including a molecule called BH4 tetrahydrobiopterin, to function efficiently after 50. Several things happen that reduce nitric oxide production and impair the function of the endothelium. First, oxidative stress increases. Reactive oxygen species, including superoxide, are produced at higher levels in the aging body, and superoxide directly destroys nitric oxide the moment it is produced, reacting with it to form peroxynitrite, a compound that not only eliminates the nitric oxide, but itself causes direct endothelial damage. Second, the availability of L-arginine, the building block that ENOS uses to make nitric oxide, can decrease because an enzyme called arginase, which competes with ENOS for L-arginine, becomes more active with age, consuming the L-arginine before ENOS can use it to make nitric oxide. Third, BH4, the essential cofactor for ENOS function, is itself destroyed by the elevated oxidative stress of the aging vascular environment. When BH4 is depleted, ENOS becomes uncoupled, meaning instead of producing nitric oxide, it starts producing superoxide, making the oxidative stress worse rather than contributing to the vasodilation that the body needs. Fourth, testosterone, which has a direct stimulatory effect on endothelial nitric oxide production, declines progressively in men after 50. As I've discussed in my video on sarcopenia, reducing one of the hormonal signals that supports nitric oxide synthesis in the endothelium. The net result of these changes is a progressive decline in nitric oxide bioavailability in men after 50 that directly contributes to elevated blood pressure, reduced peripheral blood flow, increased arterial stiffness, reduced exercise tolerance, cognitive changes from reduced cerebral blood flow, and the vascular symptoms that brought Thomas to his urologist. Now let me tell you what Thomas was drinking every day and why it mattered. Thomas drank approximately 1.5 liters of water per day, which is reasonable. He also drank 3 cups of coffee in the morning, a Diet Cola in the afternoon, and sometimes a glass or 2 of wine in the evening. What he was not drinking was anything that supported his body's ability to produce nitric oxide. And what I told Thomas was this: Thomas, the water you are drinking is keeping you hydrated. And hydration matters, but there are simple things you can add to that water and to your daily routine that have genuine clinical evidence behind their ability to support nitric oxide production and endothelial function in men your age that almost nobody has told you about. And the first and most evidence-backed addition you can make to your daily water is beetroot juice or dietary nitrate from concentrated beetroot. Let me explain why. Beetroot and other nitrate-rich vegetables, including spinach, rocket, celery, and Swiss chard, are exceptionally rich in naturally occurring dietary nitrates. And here's how those nitrates become nitric oxide in your body. When you consume dietary nitrates from beetroot or leafy greens, they are absorbed into the bloodstream, and a proportion of them are actively concentrated by the salivary glands and secreted into the saliva in the mouth. The bacteria that live naturally on the back of the tongue contain nitrate-reducing enzymes that convert the nitrate in the saliva into nitrite. When you swallow, that nitrite-rich saliva enters the acidic environment of the stomach, where some of the nitrite is converted into nitric oxide directly, providing an immediate source of the molecule that the endothelium needs. But also, the nitrite enters the bloodstream where it serves as a circulating reservoir of nitric oxide precursor that can be converted to nitric oxide in the blood vessel walls as needed, particularly during exercise or periods of increased oxygen demand, when nitric oxide production from the eNOS pathway may be insufficient to meet the demand. This dietary nitrate to nitrite to nitric oxide pathway is separate from and complementary to the L-arginine to nitric oxide pathway of eNOS. And crucially, it does not depend on eNOS function or on BH4 availability or on the L-arginine supply that arginase competition may have depleted. It bypasses the age-related impairments in the eNOS pathway and provides nitric oxide through an alternative route that remains functional even when the primary pathway is compromised. The clinical research on dietary nitrate and vascular function in older adults is genuinely impressive. A 2015 systematic review published in the Journal of Nutrition found that dietary nitrate supplementation from beetroot juice significantly reduced systolic blood pressure in clinical trials by an average of approximately 4 to 5 millimeters of mercury, a modest but clinically meaningful reduction, particularly in the context of already medicated blood pressure, where every additional millimeter of sustained reduction has cardiovascular significance. Research published in the Journal of Applied Physiology found that dietary nitrate from beetroot juice significantly improved exercise tolerance and reduced the oxygen cost of physical activity in older adults, meaning that the same level of exercise required less cardiovascular effort after dietary nitrate supplementation than before. And research specifically examining flow-mediated dilation, the same test that Thomas had done, found that dietary nitrate significantly improved endothelial function in participants with cardiovascular risk factors, including the kind of impaired flow-mediated dilation that Thomas's 4.2% result represented. Now let me tell you how to add dietary nitrate to your daily water in a practical, consistent, and evidence-based way. The most concentrated and most studied form of dietary nitrate supplementation is concentrated beetroot juice shots, available in small bottles of approximately 70 milliliters that contain the nitrate equivalent of approximately 300 to 400 grams of whole beetroot. The dose used in most of the positive clinical research is one of these shots, or approximately 300 to 500 milligrams of dietary nitrate per day, taken in the morning before exercise, or added to a large glass of water as the first drink of the day. An alternative for those who find concentrated beetroot juice shots unpleasant or expensive is to blend 250 to 300 milliliters of fresh beetroot with a small amount of water and drink it as a morning drink, or to substantially increase the daily intake of nitrate-rich vegetables, including spinach, rocket, Swiss chard, celery, and radishes, which together can provide meaningful daily nitrate without supplementation.
Now, there is one important practical point about dietary nitrate and nitric oxide production that most people are never told, and that Thomas found genuinely surprising. The conversion of nitrate to nitrite in the mouth depends entirely on the bacterial population of the tongue. And certain common products destroy those bacteria and therefore eliminate the dietary nitrate pathway almost completely. The most significant of these products is antibacterial mouthwash. Many adults, including Thomas, use antibacterial mouthwash every morning as part of their dental hygiene routine. Research published in the journal Free Radical Biology and Medicine found that using antibacterial mouthwash twice daily significantly raised blood pressure in participants by eliminating the oral bacteria that convert nitrate to nitrite and effectively switching off the dietary nitrate pathway to nitric oxide. For the hours following mouthwash use, Thomas was using antibacterial mouthwash every morning, right before his breakfast, and then drinking nothing that supported his nitric oxide production for the rest of the day. If you use antibacterial mouthwash, consider switching to a fluoride-only mouthwash that cleans and protects teeth without the bactericidal effect that eliminates the oral nitrate pathway, or limit antibacterial mouthwash to occasional use rather than daily, and use it before sleep rather than in the morning, when the nitrate pathway is most needed. Now, let me also tell you about the second addition that I recommended to Thomas's daily water that has genuine evidence behind it for nitric oxide support, and that is a small squeeze of lemon juice or a few slices of lemon added to his morning water before the beetroot juice. Lemon and citrus fruits in general are rich in vitamin C and in polyphenol compounds, including hesperidin, that support nitric oxide production through two specific mechanisms. First, vitamin C, as I discussed in my video on kiwi in blood pressure, is a potent antioxidant that neutralizes superoxide, the reactive oxygen species that destroys nitric oxide the moment it is produced. By protecting nitric oxide from superoxide destruction, vitamin C increases the amount of nitric oxide that reaches the smooth muscle cells of the blood vessel wall and produces the vasodilation that is the physiological goal of all the nitric oxide production in the first place. Second, vitamin C supports the availability of BH4, the essential cofactor for eNOS function, by recycling the oxidized form of BH4 back to its active form, reducing the eNOS uncoupling that age-related oxidative stress promotes. A simple addition of a quarter of a lemon squeezed into the first glass of water in the morning provides approximately 15 to 20 milligrams of vitamin C. As part of a broader dietary intake,
that when combined with other citrus, berries, and vegetables, meets the recommended daily intake of vitamin C for adults and supports from the moment the day begins the antioxidant environment that nitric oxide production depends on. The third addition that I want to mention is L-citrulline, which is found naturally in watermelon and in watermelon juice. L-citrulline is an amino acid that is converted in the kidney to L-arginine, the primary substrate that eNOS uses to produce nitric oxide. Now, I described how arginase competition can deplete L-arginine before eNOS can use it. And supplementing L-arginine directly has not consistently improved nitric oxide production in clinical research, in part because supplemental L-arginine is also a substrate for arginase and is similarly competed for. But L-citrulline is not a substrate for arginase. It bypasses the competition and is efficiently converted to L-arginine in the kidney in a way that specifically increases the L-arginine available to eNOS in the endothelium. Research has shown that L-citrulline supplementation improves endothelial function, reduces blood pressure, and improves exercise performance in adults with cardiovascular risk factors. Watermelon, particularly the flesh of fresh watermelon, is one of the richest natural sources of L-citrulline available. 2 cups of fresh watermelon provides approximately 1.5 grams of L-citrulline, which approaches the doses used in some of the positive research, and adds, alongside its L-citrulline content, lycopene, a powerful antioxidant that has specifically been shown to reduce LDL oxidation and arterial inflammation. In cardiovascular research, Thomas added a daily glass of fresh watermelon juice or a generous serving of fresh watermelon in the summer months, and a L-citrulline supplement of 1 to 1.5 grams per day from a reputable supplement brand in the winter months when fresh watermelon was not available. Now, let me also tell you about what I told Thomas to remove from his daily routine, because the additions are important, but the removals matter equally. The first removal was the daily diet cola. Artificial sweeteners, including those in diet beverages, have been shown in research to alter the gut microbiome in ways that increase the production of trimethylamine N-oxide, or TMAO, a compound produced by gut bacteria from certain dietary precursors that has been shown to impair endothelial function, promote arterial inflammation, and reduce nitric oxide bioavailability in the vascular system. The second removal was the regular evening alcohol. As I have discussed in my previous video on blood pressure in food and on blood pressure medications, alcohol in the evening causes a blood pressure rebound. During sleep, that impairs vascular function and reduces nitric oxide production. In the early morning hours, when it matters most for the day ahead, Thomas made all of these changes over about 4 weeks. He started his mornings with a large glass of water with lemon, followed by a concentrated beetroot juice shot. He stopped using antibacterial mouthwash in the morning, switching to a fluoride-only option. He added watermelon or L-citrulline supplementation to his daily routine. He stopped the diet cola and reduced his evening alcohol to 2 nights per week at most. He came back at 3 months. His blood pressure was 122/76, down from 138/86. His flow-mediated dilation had improved from 4.2% to 6.8%, not yet at the optimal above 7%, but a meaningful improvement in measured endothelial function. His CRP was 1.4, down from 2.8. And he told me something else. He said, "Dr. Chen, my energy is different.
I am not sure how else to describe it, but I feel like the blood is moving better in my body. And I want to say something about that description because it is not poetic, it is accurate. Better endothelial function means better vasodilation, means better blood flow to every tissue, including skeletal muscle during activity, including the brain during cognitive demands, including every vascular bed in the body. When nitric oxide production improves and blood vessels dilate more freely the way they did when they were younger, people very often describe exactly what Thomas described, a feeling that the blood is moving better, because it is. Let me bring everything together now. Nitric oxide, produced by the endothelial cells that line every blood vessel in the body, is the most important molecule in vascular health after 50.
It signals blood vessel walls to relax and dilate, regulating blood pressure, enabling oxygen delivery, and supporting every vascular function. That cardiovascular health after 50 depends on, after 50, nitric oxide production declines due to increased oxidative stress that destroys nitric oxide. As it is produced, competition for L-arginine by the arginase enzyme, depletion of BH4, the essential cofactor for ENOS, and declining testosterone, creating a progressive impairment of endothelial function that is measurable and that shows up in blood pressure, exercise tolerance, cognitive function, and vascular symptoms, like those that brought Thomas to his urologist. The additions that support nitric oxide production in men over 50 are concentrated beetroot juice or high nitrate vegetables. To supply dietary nitrate through the oral bacteria pathway that bypasses the age-impaired ENOS pathway. Lemon in morning water for vitamin C that protects nitric oxide from superoxide destruction and supports BH4 recycling. Watermelon or L-citrulline supplementation to supply L-arginine precursor through an arginase-resistant pathway, and eliminating antibacterial mouthwash from the morning routine to preserve the oral bacteria that are the gatekeepers of the dietary nitrate pathway. Thomas added these things to his water and his daily routine, and 3 months later, his endothelial function had measurably improved. His blood pressure had fallen, his inflammation had reduced, and he felt the way a man feels when the blood is moving better through his body than it has in a very long time. I am Dr. Daniel Chen. If this video gave you something that you are going to add to your water tomorrow morning, please share it with every man you know over 50 who is drinking plain water every day and not knowing what a simple addition could be doing for the blood vessels that his health depends on. Subscribe to this channel for weekly videos made with genuine care for older adults who deserve real information about their own health. And leave me a comment below. Tell me what your blood pressure is right now and whether you have ever heard about the dietary nitrate pathway to nitric oxide before today. I read every single comment and I genuinely look forward to hearing from you. Take care of your blood vessels. They are the rivers through which your health flows, and they deserve the best you can give them every single morning.